Let me begin by complimenting the Coal Secretary and the government for doing certain things. Part of it is already in the public domain. The fallout of the Supreme Court judgment has been certainly taken care of in a record time, I would say. One doesn't see government acting so fast to take the sting out of a major fallout of a Supreme Court judgment. And I think the enabling legal framework is now in place to take the next steps, which are very important. And Secretary has clearly emphasized what are those objectives that they have to pursue. Having said that, a lot of operational issues has been mentioned by Mr. Shah, and I would definitely like to respond to some of those. Those are very close to the heart of any railway man and coal man. But before coming to that, I would like to talk about a very important structural issue. If you look at the coal resources that we are sitting on, a little over 300 billion tons, of which about 35–40% is in the proven category. This is short of China's resources by about 25 to 30%. I believe China will be higher by another 30–35%, not more than that. But when it comes to production, we are just doing about 15% of what China is doing. They are 6 times or 7 times more. If you look at the structure of the Chinese coal mining industry, it's mostly the government-owned companies, they do that, but quite a large number of independent companies. And the largest the biggest Chinese coal mining company, which is China Shenhua, what it produces is less than 10% of China's production. When you look at India, Coal India is 80%. So I think the over-dependence on one company is one of the major structural problems in this country. When the economic reform started in 1991, the first real sector which was taken up for reforms was the power sector. And immediately the government was clear enough to have a study done as to whether Coal India will be able to continue meeting the demand of the country in the face of accelerated power capacity addition. Because till 1990 there was no problem. Coal India was growing at 5 to 6% and that was good enough to take care. The study revealed that if actually the power capacity addition accelerates, then Coal India will not be able to meet the demand. It was very clear. And that was one of the reasons why the Coal Mines Nationalization Act got amended in 1993 to bring in new players. Now the mode adopted for bringing new players was end users. Unfortunately, end users doing a very significant part of coal mining in any country is not a model. I mean, it has not succeeded in a very big way anywhere. The only large captive coal miner that I am aware of operates in South Africa, a company called Sasol. It mines about 45 million tons of coal. It's a big miner, but the entire coal is used for producing oil and other products. Other than that, end users doing coal mining is not a very great model which has been tried and succeeded in various parts of the world, because they have their core competence in the end use, not in coal mining. And it is not a very proper or appropriate thing to say that coal mining doesn't require any core competence. Anybody can do it. It's not that. It has its own problems, it has its own issues, and it has its own need for core competence. So I would say the mess or the problem, the big shortage that we find between supply and demand that we see today, it is actually a creation of only 10 years. 10 years back there was no mismatch. Not much significant mismatch. This is because we have actually failed to induct competent players with core competence in mining in adequate numbers. That is one of the major reasons. In this context, I must share that after the coal mines amendment was done and the projection for accelerated power capacity addition was moving around in 1990s, actual power capacity addition didn't happen. During the 8th, 9th and 10th 5-year plan, if you look at it, the average power capacity addition was 3,500 to 4,000 megawatts per year, which required an incremental coal supply of 17–18 million tons, and that is the rate at which Coal India was growing. So 15 years we didn't see the problem coming. Though the problem was anticipated in 1991, it actually came in 2007. It is the 11th 5-year plan when the power sector got its act together. It made certain policy changes, and as a result, the capacity addition started accelerating. That was exactly the time when in the Ministry of Coal, a policy was adopted called New Coal Distribution Policy. And I precisely remember the date when the policy was enacted. It was 18th of October 2007. What does that policy say? That policy says that Coal India will meet everybody's demand. Now, 15 years back, you are saying that Coal India can't meet everybody's demand, more players have to come in. 15 years later, when the power sector is actually going to accelerate, you say Coal India will meet everybody's demand. There was a huge protest resistance from Coal India, and Coal India was one of the members in that particular committee. I was a member. But there was nobody to hear. And in the Ministry of Coal, the word that used to go around is, let us call the power sector's bluff. You know, they will again do the same thing as they have been doing in 8, 9, and 10, 5-year plans, so why worry? So it was, the fact was that we have failed to read the writings on the wall properly. And that is the reason you see this huge kind of a mismatch and gap. Our failure to induct players of core competence is the basic reason for the mess that we find today. Now, I have heard Secretary the statements that he has made, and he has put it on the two buckets. One is the 500 million tons from the private sector and 1 billion from the Coal India. Now, the 500 million tons, I have a feeling that somehow or other, these end-use plants, for example, who were mining coal all these years, of course, there were some hitches, there were some investigations, so there were some questions raised about the allocations, so that might have retarded their, I mean, huge, I would say huge. And that might certainly have retarded, but all these things came in 2009, 10, or rather even later, 2011, these problems came. From 1993 to 2009, 10, if you are 10, 11, if you see the track record of growth of coal production in that sector, is not very convincing. It's not very convincing. I don't want to get into numbers. And certainly the potential was much more, and they have not been able to do that much. So I am not very confident about their ability to harness coal up to the potential of 800, 900 million tons that the blocks allotted has come up. So we really need to think seriously on how do we add more credible players who have a competence in coal mining. That's important. Another area where we need to do that much faster is, there is a huge disbalance between the occurrence of resources, reserves, and the mining pattern. You see, more than 80 billion tons of coal, which is about 25%, occur at depths of more than 300 meters, which can be mined only by underground mining. So the segregation of resources is 25% is mineable by underground mining and 75% by open cast mining. And what is our actual production share? It's 92% is open cast and 8% is underground. So there is a mismatch there. And the open castable coal is being mined at a much faster pace. As a result, we may come to a situation faster, sooner than later, where we don't find much of open castable coal. We have huge resources to be mined by underground coal, but in the absence of technology, we are not there. So that is another problem. Today in China, the more than 3.5 billion tons of coal that they produce, 90% is underground. The conditions are very different. I must say that Chinese conditions, our conditions are quite different. We can't really plan a 10 million ton underground mine with longwall mining and that kind of thing, because the coal geology is not conducive to that. But certainly we can plan a large number of 1 million ton mines. And have we done that? No. The major impediment there is we don't have a single company manufacturing underground mining equipment. There was one, MAMC Durgapur, gone. That's because Coal India never encouraged underground mining. It was always under pressure to grow at 5, 6, 7%, add 20, 25 million tons of coal. That was much easily done by open casting. So we have followed the easy path and not handled the difficult part of the job. Underground mining, you can't expect the end-use plants to do that in a big way. There are some underground mines they are also doing. Monet is doing a mine, and I'm happy to share that Monet is doing it well. I mean, the productivity of machines in that Monet mine, somewhere in Bilashpur, around that area, is better than some of the Coal India's mines. The only company which has done something credible in underground mining is Singareni Collieries. And other than that, we are absolutely at the nascent stage, as far as underground mining is concerned, and we have to do a huge acceleration there in order to see that coal resources actually can be mined in a sustainable manner. Other major issue that we have to look at is the environment forest aspects. I mean, I'm very happy that the ministry is fully into it, and the secretary has taken upon himself the responsibility of handling this boundary issues with Ministry of Environment, Forest, Railways, state governments, which is absolutely important. I mean, without that, and it's the absence of that that has actually made all these problems for Coal India. And certainly Coal India will grow much faster now, that's for sure. But the fact remains that Coal India on its part will also have to promote a large amount of sustainable mining. See, sustainability issues have to be tackled head on. It is not an issue that the Ministry of Environment and Forest should take a liberated view all the time. The coal industry will have to imbibe confidence, to create conviction, confidence in the minds of those people, so that they can be liberal and yet have a lot of... Some good things have been done in Coal India, but more needs to be done. We had a huge problem of addressing this restoration reclamation issues. Nobody was believing that restoration reclamation is done by Coal India properly. And why we addressed it is, to be very honest, I was the chairman at that time, not because I was a great environment friendly person, but I saw a big issue in handling the IPO. I was quite sure that international global investors, and that was the dipstick study showed very clearly, that is a question they are raising, that you guys have a very poor environmental record. You only degrade land. And when I came back and looked at it in a slightly granular manner, I was really aghast to find that if you look at the KRA of the project officers who are responsible for open cast mines, land restoration and reclamation doesn't figure there. It's not an item, not to speak about a high weightage. It's not an item. It was in 2008 we introduced that the project officer's second most important KRA will be land restoration and reclamation. They have to restore. There has to be a target. Otherwise, the situation was that he could become a general manager, director, CMD without doing land restoration and reclamation properly. And in order to supervise that, what we introduced was a satellite surveillance. Satellite surveillance of all major open cast mines, restoration. Very simple. You just take annual images, plot it side by side. If the coal, blacked out coal area increases, restoration is incommensurate. If it is fine, then restoration is commensurate. If it is shrinked, restoration is more than commensurate. And accordingly, when this was communicated to the project officers and the satellite surveillance was also introduced, we spent about 14 crores. Same period did it. It was done very well. As a result, all the mines became compliant. We took the next step. 53 coal mines, open cast mines applied for ISO 14001. All of them got it. This was a part of the important message that went into the document. As a result of which, sir, you were there very much as part of the process. You could see the investors' satisfaction about the environmental records of the company. I think we need to have some sort of a conviction now more. We don't have to make investors happy now. We have to make basically the country happy that proper environmental measures are being taken while doing coal mining. And those are simple things. We have failed till date to introduce water sprinklers in our open cast mines, which actually don't create what we call kichad. You know, normally the water sprinklers that we use will spray huge amount of water. It will not spray. It will just pull water, and then the whole thing will become mud. And then the local people will find it difficult to walk. That is the effect of our water sprinklers. You see any global mine, it is absolutely mist that is created out of the sprinklers. And it settles down without causing any kind of dirt or mud or something like that. It's just halka wet. And there is no problem in movement. That kind of thing, why we couldn't introduce? Because there was a tendering system, there was a L1. Water sprinklers are not procured globally, it has to be procured locally. We have to handle these problems. These are problems that have to be handled. Let us do the Chinese style, bring some good global, world-class water sprinklers and then, tear it apart and have the technology, develop it here, but it has to be done. If we don't do it, dust is a major problem. In the whole of Korba area, dust is a major problem. MPs have written to the government time and again that you create so much of dust, one can't breathe, one can't do this, one can't do that. Why can't we solve this problem? So these are issues that we need to solve. Now we come to the Coal India's 1 billion ton. They are the biggest I would say the low-hanging fruit that we have is the equipment utilization. If you look at the equipment utilization numbers, Coal India's numbers vary between 3,000 to 3,500 hours out of 8,400 hours that you have annually. Whereas the comparable numbers in the global best practices is 6,000 to 6,500. So there's a big gap there. If you ask the Coal India people, what they will say is the biggest problem they have will be in terms of land availability. The equipment can't function optimally because somewhere it has only 1 year of land, somewhere it has only 2 years of land. So they cannot function properly. That is out. Somewhere they don't have land for overburden dumping. These are problems. A problem of this type appeared in 1990s when the World Bank loan was approached. At that time, Coal India didn't have any money. We were completely dependent upon, so we approached the World Bank for a loan. One condition they laid down, that we are not going to finance any project which does not have 10 years of land in its possession. It took just about a year to make it happen. And 24 mines were identified with 10 years of land in possession. And if Coal India is a profitable and good company today, it is implementation of those projects in the late 90s, which has made it happen. So you put a condition that every project officer, general manager and the director in charge in the company who is responsible for land must ensure that 5 years of land requirement has to be with you. You will see the impact on equipment utilization. Immediately the equipment utilization will start shooting up. You look at the practices, the blasting practices, for example, the mine planning practices. Are we closer to the global best? No, there are huge gaps. Let the management look into that part. I mean, all these areas of efficiency can be looked in. We should be comparing ourselves with the global best, and I can tell you that these are basically low-hanging fruits where actions in the next 1 or 2 years is going to give results, and at least the first 2-3 years of 15% plus kind of growth can be positively and definitely achieved by making these things happen. And today there is a conducive environment with a hugely supportive secretary. There is a conducive environment for making all this happen. So I think I'll stop here and then we can take it forward.